Can we talk about the Lion King sequel? No. Not the new one. The Lion King Zero, the prequel. I want to talk about The Lion King 2, the direct-to-video sequel. Just a brief history lesson. Back in the 90s and into the 2000s, Disney formed an animation studio specifically to churn out direct-to-video sequels of their theatrical hits because it was cheap, fast, and easy to profit off of already established properties. Sound familiar? Today, let's talk about the OG Lion King trilogy. First up, the film that started it all, The Lion King. My TLDR review is, this movie is a masterpiece. If you haven't already, go see it. If you have, but it's been a while, just watch it again. All the care that went into making this movie really shines through. The cinematography, the great sense of scale, the fact that they spent more than 2 years creating a CGI program for the 2.5-minute stampede sequence. The animators consulted wildlife experts, studied animals at the zoo, and even had lions visit the animation studio so they could study how they moved and behaved. My point is, so much thought and care went into creating the first movie, and it really shows. I'm sure most people have seen this movie by now, so I'm just going to speedrun my synopsis. The first movie takes clear inspiration from Shakespeare's Hamlet, but with lions. You got this evil dude, Scar. You can tell he's bad news because he's got all the trademark villain traits. Darker color palette, disfigurement, dripping with sarcasm, gay icon. He's got a lust for power, basically coveting his brother's throne. Then you got his brother, Mufasa, the jock, the stud. He is everything Scar is not. He's stronger, better looking, and well liked. The movie opens with a ceremony presenting Mufasa's son, the new heir, Simba. Uh-oh, that means Scar is no longer next in line for the throne. Now he's got to contend with this brat as well as his super tough brother. Fear not, for what he lacks in physical strength, Scar certainly makes up for with his cunning brain. How to usurp the throne and seize it for himself? This calls for a coup d'etat. With an assist from his hyena henchman, Scar's plot to murder his brother and frame Simba is set in motion. His plan goes off without a hitch. Mufasa is reduced to an expensive throw rug. Filled with guilt and horror, Simba flees Pride Rock, leaving an uncontested throne with Scar as the next in line of succession. Simba gets taken in and raised by his foster dads, away from the politics of his homeland. He grows into adulthood. Then, one day, who should he stumble upon? None other than his childhood bestie and eventual love interest, Nala, who is like, yo dude, shit is whack, you gotta come home and take your place as king. Simba is torn between his new life of leisure versus answering the call and dealing with his unresolved childhood trauma. Simba has a heart-to-heart with his bio-dad's ghost and realizes that he can't continue to run from his past, so he returns home and usurps his diabolical uncle. The movie ends with the presentation ceremony for his daughter. Boom, circle of life. I honestly don't have much more to say about this movie. There are some great videos out there delving into why this movie is a masterpiece, but I don't want to get into that right now. I want to talk about the direct-to-video sequels, so let's move on. I haven't seen this movie in 20 years or so how is it that I still remember all the lyrics to the songs? Sure, I was a bit of a Lion King kid with my theme sleeping bag, Simba onesie, and the Simba and Nala stuffed animals that had magnets in their noses so it looked like they're kissing. But come on, why is my brain dedicating space to objectively useless information? But anyway, The Lion King 2 is secretly a banger. It's direct-to-video, which means it had a drastically lower budget. There were no expectations for it to be good. It did not have to go this hard. Is it a masterpiece like the original? Well, no, but it's also not fair to rank it on the same scale. As far as cheap sequels go, it's actually pretty solid. The animation looks good, solid soundtrack, most of the original voice cast is back, except for Rowan Atkinson as Zazu. The Lion King 2 takes inspiration from a different Shakespeare play. This time, it's Romeo and Juliet. It's hard to do a classic tale wrong, it's popular for a reason. As I mentioned earlier, this was a low-budget, direct-to-video sequel. That meant they had to shave off costs where they could. I watched this immediately following the first movie. I couldn't help but notice some of the scenes looked very familiar. It looked like the team working on the sequel copied the original's homework. Like, some scenes look straight up traced. Recycled footage with new characters. Kovu and Kiara just look like reskinned Simba and Nala. Kovu's family, really the only original characters, just look cheap. Like, I wish I had the correct vernacular for this, but they just look so bad. Like, they were designed for a TV show. We got a tight budget and deadlines to hit, people. We can't have you taking your sweet time to study how animals move at the zoo.
To be clear, I mean no shade. This is merely an observation. It's a pretty solid story otherwise. I understand they did the best they could within the constraints they were given. But yeah, Romeo and Juliet, star-crossed lovers. You got Kiara, Simba and Nala's daughter from the end of the first movie. She's a reluctant princess with a helicopter dad. I mean, can you really fault Simba after the childhood he had? Did they have therapy in the savannah? Like, this boy's literally having PTSD flashbacks. What Scar did was terrible and traumatic, but him getting eaten alive by hyenas apparently wasn't justice enough. Simba went on to punish anyone remotely associated with him, including, in Kovu's case, an innocent child that just so happened to be Scar's ward. Speaking of Kovu, our dear Romeo, and one of my earliest childhood crushes, what can I say? I have a type. He's a bad boy from the wrong side of the tracks. Oh, did I mention that this is also kind of a race allegory? Let's recap. You have Simba and his pride, who live in the flourishing Pride Lands. Then you have the Outlanders, the lions cast out and forced to live in the desolate wastelands bordering Simba's kingdom. One day, as children, Kiara and Kovu meet. Simba is like, "Oh no, they're not like us, dear daughter. You're not allowed to play with that one. He's a bad egg, and you're a literal princess." So, a begrudging Kiara gets herded back to her sheltered little life. Meanwhile, there's Kovu, the spitting image of Scar, who grew up being told by everyone that he's a bad, good-for-nothing little dude. What happens when all the people around you tell you who you are? Well, you start to believe it. Kovu grows up believing he must be bad. Of course, it doesn't help that his mother Zira actively tries to mold him in Scar's image in order to succeed where his father failed. This movie is about parallels, love versus hate. First, you have Kiara and Kovu, both of whom have grown up with their fates decided. They both seek to carve out their own paths outside of someone else's shadow. For Kiara, it's to figure out what kind of ruler she wants to be. For Kovu, it's to forge his own identity independent of Scar's. Can he be good just because Scar was bad? Naturally, these two form a kinship that later becomes a blossoming romance, ultimately leading to the final theme of the movie, that love and acceptance conquers hate and bigotry. Second, there's Simba and Zira, both of which have a deep-seated prejudice of the other. As a kid, Simba loved and trusted his uncle. Scar's actions were a great betrayal that forever altered his life and robbed him of his dad. As a result, he's become suspicious and distrustful of outsiders. He sees himself in Kiara. She's just like he was as a cub, spirited, reckless. However, because of what he went through, Simba is a way different father than Mufasa. He's overprotective, denying Kiara the freedom and independence to make her own choices. Throughout the movie, Simba appears lost without his father's guidance, constantly reaching out to the stars with no response. He feels as though he's failing to measure up to his father's legacy. Now, there's Zira. Her heart is filled with the venom and hatred. She sees ruling the Pride Lands as something she's owed, taken from her by Simba. He represents the sole reason why they're forced to scavenge in the outskirts. As a result, she molds Kovu into Scar 2.0 as a key piece in her revenge plot. That leads me to my third point, the parenting styles of Simba versus Zira. You can see it reflected in how they carry their cubs away. Simba, gentle, gripping Kiara painlessly by the scruff of her neck. Zira, authoritarian, clutching Kovu by his waist, her sharp fangs digging in. Both parents are living in the past. For Simba, death is a constant companion. He lost his father too young. Now he's just kind of winging it as a ruler. As a result, he actively teaches his daughter so that she'll be more prepared for when he's gone. He wants what's best for her, but due to his unresolved trauma, he lives in constant fear. Fear for her safety, fear of a future betrayal. The past clouds his judgment. He can't even trust his own daughter to make her own decisions, which, of course, pushes her away. As for Zira, she was so wrapped up in her own revenge that she never saw Kovu as anything more than a tool at her disposal. In the beginning, she favored him simply because he was the most similar to Scar. She was mostly indifferent to passively cruel toward her other children. Then came the moment of the ambush on Simba. Kovu actively made a choice. He stood up by refusing to be her pawn. Zira saw this as a great betrayal. She was quick to reject him to the point of lashing out. How could her own son, the golden child, stand against her? He must have been corrupted by Simba. I want to point out that her other son, in an attempt to curry favor, gave his life during the ambush. And by gave his life, I mean the light drained from his eyes. I was pacing and muttering to myself, oh my god, we're about to watch this lion die. Mufasa's death was off-screen. He fell, now there's a corpse. Nuka's death was quite conspicuous. And, of course, Zira blames Simba for the loss of both her sons. On to the climax. Zira rallies her pride to face off against that of Simba's, lion v. lion. Meanwhile, Kovu returns back to the Pride Lands, only to be exiled by Simba. Cue the best song in the movie, One of Us. I may or may not have listened to this song for 2 hours straight last night. You can't prove anything. Simba decrees exile. Cue soul music as all the animals break into song. This is honestly the best scene in the whole movie. Kovu does the walk of shame, downtrodden, shoulders hunched forward as he slinks away. The lyrics are basically, we knew you were bad from the start. You'll never be one of us. Traitor, deceiver. As the song progresses, the music gets louder, the bass heavier. It's like the music, and by extension, the personification of their public rejection, is actively weighing him down. Okay, let's wrap this up. Kiara is all, but daddy, I love him, and sneaks out to find Kovu. He's all, well, that sucked. Let's run away. To which pure-hearted Kiara responds, nah, we gotta unite the prides. Cut to the two factions facing off. Kiara and Kovu run in to drop some wisdom and broker peace. Look at them. They are us. Nothing like the unclouded judgment of the next generation to set aside ancient feuds. Everyone's on board except for Zira. She's too far gone. She pulls a Hail Mary, lunging toward Simba, only to be intercepted by Kiara. They both tumble off the cliff. Kiara attempts to save Zira, but it's futile. Zira falls into the raging river below. Just a quick note, there's actually a deleted scene where Kiara is like, grab my paw, to which Zira responds, nah, I'm good, and intentionally lets go, choosing suicide over saving. That ending was probably a little too dark for a kid's movie, but I do appreciate the symbolism that being unable to relinquish her hatred is what ultimately led to her demise. For completionist's sake, let's talk about The Lion King 1/2. This movie was based on a play someone else wrote about Hamlet's two buddies. Tom Stoppert's Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Knowing that, I'm sure you can deduce that this movie follows Timon and Pumbaa, showing what they were getting up to during the events of the first film. So, if Lion King 2 kind of copied one's homework, but ultimately came out with a really great original story, Lion King 1/2 basically changed a few words around and increased the font size to stretch out a feature-length film. The movie uses a framing device that's just Mystery Science Theater. Basically, Timon and Pumbaa are munching on grubs out of a popcorn bucket and supplying their own commentary while they watch the first movie. Personally, I was a young teen when this movie came out, and I liked it, but maybe I'm biased. I really liked Timon, but I also went through a Meerkat phase that later involved watching a lot of the documentary show Meerkat Manor. However, I will admit that the iconic duo primarily deal in lowbrow humor, and with each succession of films, the humor drops lower. Take with that what you will. Upon rewatching it as an adult, it's definitely the weakest of the trilogy. I find the incessant fart jokes more gross than funny, and at times our duo is just annoying, like when Nala is trying to tell them, yo, Simba went home to overthrow the monarch, and the message is just not getting through their thick skulls, resulting in a scene that goes on for way too long. However, I did still enjoy Timon's backstory at the start of the plot. Basically, it depicts him back with his colony, an individual amongst conformists. He's a bit of an eccentric dreamer that's a misshaped cog in a well-oiled meerkat machine. After repeated blunders, he sets out on his own to find himself. Then he meets Pumbaa, who's an outcast because of his stank. They become best buds, wandering hippies, and adopt a lion cub together, and so on and so forth. Refer back to my notes on the first movie. I don't really have much more to say except, dig a tunnel, dig a tunnel, dig a tunnel, dig a tunnel. That song has been plaguing me as I sleep. It's just so damn catchy. As I said before, the first movie, The Lion King, is a masterpiece. If you watch anything from this franchise, let it be that one. However, the sequel, The Lion King 2, has a deeper, emotionally complex, more character-focused plot. It's surprising to me that it was made to be a cheap direct-to-video sequel. It did not have to go this hard. The Lion King 1.5 is skippable. If you're hungry for more content and Timon backstory, then just watch the beginning. The rest feels juvenile and is clearly coasting off of the first one. Watching all the mediocre Mufasa reviews was what prompted me to make this video. I don't understand why the new live action wasn't a remake of The Lion King 2. With a limited budget, the team working on it still managed to make a pretty solid movie. Simba dealing with his PTSD in the wake of the first film would have been so much more compelling. Mufasa was the spark that set off the plot. Personally, I don't think that's enough to garner his own movie. His story is over. A prequel just feels derivative. It should add something substantial to the original film. I guess it doesn't matter in the end. I still probably wouldn't have watched a live-action remake anyway.
Y'all want to hear a quick story from my childhood? The year was 2005, or thereabouts. My childhood best friend's parents were hosting a neighborhood block party. One of the neighbors, a guy, he was talking about The Lion King, you know, the animated one from the 90s. And he said with such passion, such fervor, "My kids will never see Mufasa die." I think about that a lot still. That was like 20 years ago, and I still think about that. Does he fast forward every time and get his kids to cover their eyes while he fast forward through the iconic death scene? Are they just like, oh, Mufasa had to go away to a farm. Don't question it. I don't know. I just think that's interesting. Maybe it's only interesting to me.